everyone, it's Mari. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel today. I'm going to be creating this rustic floral mini slimline card that you can see on the screen here. I'm going to do a bunch of die cutting for my project today, and I'm mainly going to be using the dies from the spring bouquet and tropical bouquet die sets. These are standalone die sets that are fantastic for building some really fun projects. Now, I wanted to kind of get a little bit messy today and do a little bit of mixed media for my project. So I'm going to use a bunch of Lindy's Stamp Gang Magicals on some watercolor paper. Now what I'm going to do is just mix up the colors in the little palette there that you see to the right by putting some water in the little wells and then putting the powder in and mixing it up. I'm going to apply some water to the paper and then apply the pigment to that little area of water on my watercolor paper. And I'm working with two different sets of Lindy's Magicals. I'm working with Industrial Chic and Alexandra's Artists. And at this point, when I was going to be creating the card or thinking about the card to create, I hadn't really chosen a color scheme. I actually was really inspired by these colors of Lindy's. And so what I did was I swatched out a whole bunch of colors on my watercolor paper here. And then after I had them all swatched out and dried, I decided which of these colors I wanted to use. And so I just took my dies and I die cut a bunch of these different colors to create my card. So look at how pretty all of these really fun colors are. I really like that steampunk color and the kind of that steel gray color. Really love that blue in the Alexandra's Artists. I think that one's called Jana's Jade. And so you'll see that color scheme unfold here as I create my card. I also wanted to use the Barnwood Planks dies. This is one of my favorite standalone dies from Honeybee. It's a really fun way to create some texture on your card. And so what I did was I cut that from some Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. And now what I'm going to do is apply these different sizes of planks onto my slimline card front. So I have a piece of white cardstock cut to 6x3, which is kind of the traditional mini slimline size. And I'm going to put my planks on there and use the pencil to help me decide what the length of each plank needs to be. And I wanted to, of course, change the length of the planks going across the paper so that they vary in length, as though it might be planks of wood on your wall. And I just really like that look. I think it's really trendy right now, and it's really fun to create with on a project like this. So you're just going to see me here. I'm going to show you how I went about just putting these planks down onto that background paper, using the pencil to figure out where I needed to size down the paper. And then with each subsequent piece, I started with that piece that was the cut off from the last. So that little piece that's left over from cutting the last piece, that's going to be my first piece on my next row. And then I fill in that extra little area with the next piece. And then I use that whatever's left over for the next row, and so on and so forth. And so in that way, I end up with a varied length look on my panel, and I'm going to get those all stuck down and ready to go. But before I stick them down, I want to add a little bit of color to them to make them look a little bit more weathered. So I'm going to use some Distress Oxide Weathered Wood ink and just a little ink dauber here. And you'll just see me here brushing that weathered wood ink onto the different panels to just kind of make them look weathered, to kind of make them look like they're actually kind of barnwood look. And so I really like that look for the background. I think it's really fun. And I have done this on another card. I think it was maybe a card around Christmas time that I did this same technique, and I just love this die set. It's really fun to use, and if it's not one that you've picked up yet, I do highly recommend it. It is really great for a lot of different background techniques that you might do on your projects. So there you can see I have those all inked up, and I have that all glued down to my card base. I did use my Honeybee Stamps glue tube for that, and now I'm just going to take one of my Prismacolor pencils and create little faux nail holes on those planks. And now you can just see that I'm taking a stylus. I've got all of my different floral bits cut out of that Lindy Stamp Gang color, and I've used the spring bouquet and the tropical bouquet florals dies to create these bits for my card front. And I'm just using that stylus on a foam pad here and just creating some texture on those little floral bits so that they're really kind of like dimensional in that way. Now I'm going to take my plank blank piece here, and I'm going to glue that onto my card base. My card base again is 6x3, and I'm going to get that all ready to go. And I've got all of my floral and leaf pieces and everything all die cut out of that Lindy's Magicals paper. Now I'm also going to use a little bit of paper from the Fresh Brewed paper pad, and I just cut a strip of that, and I'm going to use that as the base for where my florals are on my card front. So I'm going to adhere that down to my card front and then add my florals to it. Before I adhere it down though, I want to distress it a little bit. So I'm going to do a combination of inking with some vintage photo distress ink, and I'm also going to use my paper distressing tool here. So I'm going to I'm going to ink it up a little bit, and then I'm going to distress the edges, and then I'm going to ink it a little bit more. So here's just the first little bit of inking with that ink dauber there. I'm just adding just a tiny little bit of definition to the edges of the paper with that vintage photo ink. And now I'm going to take my paper distressing tool. I don't actually go at this too hard. I just want just a tiny little bit of distressing. I don't want to really rip the paper, which if you follow me at all, I definitely do a lot of that on my scrapbooking layouts, just because I really love the texture that the distressing tool adds to the paper and the project. And now I'm just going to again add a little bit more, but mostly just to the corners of the paper with that vintage photo ink. Really like how that gives it the aged look, and which really contributes to the rustic theme of this card. So I will just take some adhesive here and add that onto my card now. And like I said, that is going to be the piece that sort of is the home or the background for all of the little floral bits that I'm going to be adding to this card. And this is a little bit of a process, and it does take some time, so please bear with me. And I have sped this up a little bit so that it doesn't take forever. But I'm just showing you here the bits that I do want to put onto my card. And I wasn't really sure, I didn't really have a plan of exactly where everything was going to go. So I'm just playing with it. I'm moving things around, and I have distressed the flowers and the little bits that I wanted to distress with the pad, the foam pad and the stylus. I've already done all of that work. So all of these are already shaped, and I've done all the shaping with the florals that I want to do at this point, I believe. And now you can just see that I'm adding some things with glue dots and some things with foam adhesive to create the layers. And some things I'm actually putting down right flat to that patterned paper, so that we just get a little bit of dimension and high and low points with those florals as they bounce down that patterned paper from top to bottom. And I'm also varying the colors of the florals and the foliage that I'm using there as well, so that it's not like a blue, 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 and then a beige, beige, beige kind of thing, so that I wanted that to really be varied. So I'm actually going to add a couple more sprigs of foliage to the top and the bottom. And I don't know if I show that on camera, but you will see that in some still shots at the end of the video here. But this is the most of what I'm going to add to that floral section. And now I'm adding some splatters of white paint. You can add whatever kind of white splatter if you're going to recreate this that you want. I'm using Dina Wakley gloss spray, but you could use white acrylic paint, or you could use opaque white gesso. You could use some there's lots of different ways you could do this. You could use some Copic white if you have some of that. Lots of ways you could put some white splatters on there. And this is some gold splatters with some Heidi Swapp Color Shine. I just felt like gold was a really nice touch on this card, just because of the color scheme that I have going on there. And now you can just see the white and the gold and how nice they look. Now I have cut a circle using a 1 3/4 inch circle punch, and then I also from some white cardstock, and then I also cut another circle from a 1 1/2 punch using a 1 1/2 punch, with some vellum. So that's a little layered area there that I'm going to use for my sentiment. And I'm also going to be using the Sweet Sunflowers sentiment on my card, Hello Sweet Friend. Now I'm going to do something here that I don't think I've done on camera before, but I want to tell you about it because I think it's a really cool technique. If you stamp out your sentiment with black, slow drying pigment ink, and then you put gold embossing powder over top, what's really awesome about that is if there's any place where your gold embossing powder kind of misses a little bit, it's not a big deal because that black ink is underneath and it really allows you to see the sentiment really well. So I highly suggest or recommend this technique for your heat embossing when you're using gold. It does really help your sentiment show up nicely. And I just use some gold embossing powder then over that black VersaFine Clair ink that I've stamped out here. My sentiment is hello friend. I've melted that embossing powder. And now I'm going to apply the sentiment to my vellum circle with some foam adhesive. Now you can apply your vellum circle just with regular adhesive. I sewed mine down because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with that at the time, but you can definitely just add a little bit of adhesive behind the vellum, behind where the sentiment is going to go, and it will hide the adhesive on your vellum. Now I'm applying my little sentiment area there just to the right of my florals. I really love how this looks, and I love how this card turned out. I think it's a really fun, super rustic mini slimline card. It took me a little while to make this card, but it was totally worth it. I love the dimension. I love the color scheme. I think it's really super pretty and soft, and definitely a style that really speaks to me. I love this style of card. I think it's super pretty. Now I have given you some close-up shots here of the card so you can see what I did also add. I added some Farm Fresh gold gems, gem stickers there in 3 places. You can see 2 at the bottom of the card here, and you'll see another one kind of near the top on one of the leaves. And I added a few more little leaf sprigs to my card as well, just to fill in some of the area. So I'm going to give you another still shot here of the entire card. I really love how this card turned out. Make sure you check the description box below for links to the products that I use for my project today. If you haven't subscribed yet to Honeybee Stamps, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and like and comment and share this video. We'll see you another time, guys. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.